First of all, I think your analysis was very straight-lined. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing frogs.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charlene Persaud, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got nothing.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Tomorrow, Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the kind
an
of critic.
erratic
Mikhail
detective,
Rodriguez.
is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? No, girl, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Kingdom, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hi there, welcome to the Freddie Kissoon Show with co-host Akash Persaud. Mr. Persaud had a bereavement in the family and won't be here this evening. We have a short introduction that tells you about the characters of people, and we're glad we have two such characters in the studio this evening. We decided to pre-record and air the show this evening. We're coming to you live. That's because of people's schedule. So we were scheduled to record at 1:30. Our two guests who are in the studio this evening came, and there was blackout from 12:30 in Laluni Street where the studio is. These two people I have known a long time. One of them I've known when we were teenagers. So I've known him very long time. They say, look, we will wait and do the program. People expect the program. The program has been advertised. The subject is 58 years of independence. They both have contributions to make about Guyana. So we decided to have a lime and wait until the lights came back. From 1:30, these people arrived and they left at 5:30 and the lights didn't come back. At 6 p.m., GPL came, and you're not going to believe this wherever you are in Guyana and out of Guyana. It took GPL 5 minutes to put the lights back on. So apparently it was just a fuse need changing. So you can go with blackouts for a whole day because the GPL crew couldn't come to just do a 3 minutes job. The two guests who waited for 5 hours in commitment to this program are Guyana's longest standing Pan Africanist activist. I've known him when we were teenagers and he was into Pan Africanism. This is his 4th appearance on this program, Gerald Perreira, who has lived all over the Middle East and has interfaced with some of the biggest names in global Pan Africanism. Next to him is UG lecturer, but also an African rights activist. She has been around in what we would call groundings among African people and the poorer classes of people. She's currently doing a project among Amerindians, but I'm not at liberty to say more on that. She will have to say that. So our two guests this afternoon waited for 5 hours so we can get the show on the road. And guess what? They came back at 8:30 when this program is being broadcast live now. So thank you, Gerald. I think you owe it to me. We've been around a long time. And thank you, Charlene, for always espousing causes. So you should have espoused the cause of the Freddie Kissoon Show. We go alphabetically, but we will break from that tradition and ask Charlene to lead off. Charlene, thanks for being here. Well, as usual, Gerald.
Yeah.
Charlene, you would have been around Guyana. You grew up in Guyana. You went to school at Bishop's with my wife. You sat in the same classes. And you, like all of us, Gerald, myself, we evolved in Guyana. We've seen Guyana in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Charlene, looking back at 50 years of independence, what have you seen? And then when the program neared to come to an end, we will look at the future. What have you seen the past 58 years, Charlene, from your own perspective, your own analytical perspective? What has Guyana been like 58 years of independence?
Well, I just want to get over the fact that I just remember Janet and I, your wife, dissecting the same guinea pig together in the downstairs lab with Joy O'John as our biology instructor. And I remember us, that kind of bonding, that it was an all-girls school, as you know, at that time, that kind of bonding between students at what you call an Ivy League kind of school in Guyana. I would have liked to see that kind of confidence grow among all the school-going children of Guyana. But if you just think of education alone, we haven't done that for education. And for me, I'm a teacher, I'm a school teacher, you know. People say you work at UG or a lecturer. I like to call myself a school teacher. And I would have liked to see a more equitable education system. You ask me what I'm seeing, and I'm saying what I'm not seeing. Sorry about that. So, I mean, I think most Guyanese would say today that we have not traveled very far towards independence. But the question is, what exactly is independence? But for me, what I'm seeing is we moved out of British colonialism and we are moving into the colonialism of the United States, the imperialism of the United States, with a very small period during the 70s when we attempted to stand up as an independent nation, part of the non-aligned movement. I mean, I distinctly remember, even in the 80s, I distinctly remember on the Burnham, the letter, the petition, you know, you didn't have online petition those days. A letter was being passed around the schools to sign for Nelson Mandela's release from prison. That's the kind of societal consciousness that we had, even in the 80s when I taught as a student. The early 80s, Burnham was still alive. That consciousness that Guyana was part of a movement, a liberation movement, however flawed it was, I see that as almost completely eroded today. I'm open for people to show me where there are glimmers of hope, but I'm not seeing it in terms of popular conversation. I'm not seeing it. People are generally frantic. People are generally despairing. And to me, worst of all, they become selfish, self-serving, greedy, blind. You know, well, I may be wrong. There may be other things about us. I'm just talking about what I'm seeing on the surface of things. There seems to be a triumph of a very puerile kind of middle class. Let me stop.
I've known this young man here since we were teenagers. He's always was argumentative, and maybe that is why.
Still is.
Yeah, of course, he still is.
Yeah,
and I'm glad he is. Thank you very much for persisting today and tonight with the program. Gerald, I would know that you were there and saw 58 years of independence. you probably have a mouthful.
Well, Freddie, after 58 years, I'm not happy with what I see. And Charlene mentioned about independence. I think our understanding of independence is very parochial. People see independence as we got rid of the British. We got our own national anthem, our own flag, our own head of state. And some of us, we refer to that as flag and anthem independence. Walter Rodney referred to it as briefcase independence. And that is what a lot of countries, a number of countries in the global south, like Guyana, parts of the countries in the Caribbean and Africa, Ghana and all of those places achieved. Good. It took people like Nkrumah to realize that political independence, and I think Bonham understood that too, he did, that political independence is meaningless unless you have substantial independence, economic independence. And today you're seeing in a number of countries, and this concept emerged about 3 decades ago, the struggle for second liberation or second independence. They call it the struggle for second independence. Because we have this narrow understanding of independence as the British are no longer here, right? We're no longer seeing the white faces, although you're seeing them back, right? And because we have black faces or non-white faces in higher places, we think that we're independent and we're sovereign, and we're not. And this struggle for real or true independence continues. I will tell you this, I don't know if you recall. When Bonham passed away and Mr. Hoyt took over, a group of us got together and we formed a group that was short-lived called the NMOTI, National Movement for True Independence. We brought out a few flyers. It didn't last long. And because Mr. Hoyt was now the new president. So we had Omai in here, and then we had the privatization and the sellout of state resources, the sellout of Guyana timbers to Lord Beaverbrook, who bought it, and all of that.
And then sold it.
Yes.
And sold it.
And yes.
With a super profit, yeah.
Yeah, with a super. They didn't dry it properly, and he flipped it.
Yeah.
Good. And we know some of the characters and the people who were involved in that. We're not going to mention the name, but it started then with this, when the IMF and the World Bank and them start to put pressure on Mr. Hoyt, and he went along with this opening up of the economy, liberalization and all of that, and they sell out the state assets and all of that. And you had Omai operating in this country for years. And Omai claimed that they didn't make a profit, so maybe they were running a charity, but they're back. And this brings me back to what a great Zambian freedom fighter said, Simon Chapel Weber. He said, if you don't focus on taking independence seriously, right, you will lose it. You will be recolonized. Investors will come back into your country, and that you'll lose your independence and sovereignty. We've seen it. So I'm hearing some people saying that this country is being recolonized. I agree with that, but they're not being honest. Let them tell us when this recolonization process started. Mm-hmm. Some would have us believe that it started under this government. Mm-hmm. No, it did not. Mm-hmm. It started under Mr. Hoyt.
Yeah, correct.
Let's be honest. Let's be intellectually honest. Mm-hmm. But they want to make it sound like it started under the government. And when Chedi Jagan became the president, right, they said, look, external forces said, look, the Cold War is over. We don't have any problem with you being back in office and all of that. Mm-hmm. And Chedi ran with some of the programs that he had to go along with what it was agreed on, what Hoyt accepted. But I know from certain quarters, he was reluctant about privatization. He was reluctant about it because, as someone said that Chedi was afraid that if you privatize, one particular group will have the means of buying up things and the other thing. Because at the end of the day, whatever differences you might have had with Chedi Jagan, politically or ideologically or what. No one, I believe in the bottom, in the deeper recess of my, that both Burnham and Jagan were committed to the working classes of this country. Whatever,
Definitely.
nobody can deny that, right? And I'm not getting into this thing about this one was the father of the nation and this one was the father of the nation, right? The US got founding fathers. And my argument to put a rest to that is that I think both men were founding fathers. That's my position, right? I think both made their contribution. Now, I am reading today where a very prominent attorney said, it's in the Kaichur, he's talking about Guyana being ill-prepared as an ill-prepared oil-producing country heading down the road of chaos. And where we're heading we'll get a class of citizens will be a class of poor citizens. Our citizens, you will get more poverty in this country among the Guyanese. The expatriate labor force will expand. And he said foreigners will be reshaping the country. Now, I've been talking about recolonization since Desmond High time. Good? And I am saying that what we are witnessing in this country, this tramples on our independence and sovereignty. I know that very powerful forces dictate to this country. Imagine our 58 years of independence, Freddie, and we still have legal exports from Canada coming into this country to run workshops and seminars for our jurists. Which part of the world can you find Jamaicans or Nigerians or Ghanaians or former colonies going to Canada or Britain to lecture them on jurisprudence and how to draft legal legislation and all that? And we have that. We can never. Guyana is the only country in the Caribbean when they have elections that the Western embassies then enter into the electoral process and play a very powerful role in it. It don't happen anywhere else.
No, it happens elsewhere too.
Well, but what I'm saying, but it shows me we have not 58 years independence. And you can see where's the intellectual independence? We're still, this level of intellectual incarceration, it's there.
We want to come in there.
No, I just wanted to say the whole Caribbean is in a similar situation. I mean, the other day...
No, but all I was saying is election time, you don't see those people.
Right, but in terms of the lack of independence, if independence means a people coming out of enslavement, indentureship, and colonialism, coming out boldly and speaking to the world in that voice, the whole Caribbean is trapped in that neo-colonial situation. The other day, a group wanted to march for Palestine in Barbados. Mm-hmm. You do know of that?
Yeah.
And the police shut it down. The police did not give them permission in the Great Republic of Barbados. Mm-hmm. There are other things. I mean, we're not here to talk about the other Caribbean, but in every single Caribbean country,
you lived in Jamaica.
There is obvious. Oh my, Jamaica, the bastion of class division. Second, probably only to Haiti in class division, where white has might. The Jamaican population is what saves them. The fact that so many black people in Jamaica, but white still has might in Jamaica.
And that's a country.
So we didn't expect to be following that. We expected we were the different one. We were coming closer to what was happening with Cuba. We were going in that direction, and then we made a right about turn.
Well, let me throw this out to both of you. Aren't we seeing, especially the adumbration and description of Gerald, aren't we turning our back on a more global village that we have become over the past 30 years? And therefore, we shouldn't make that kind of separation between who come to advise us. We shouldn't make that separation about observers, because we have had, as a post-colonial state and as an independent state, and it includes members of all parties, PNC, PPP, we have observed elections around the world. Isn't it that the kind of trend that we have now, where the world looks out to see that there is some kind of universal code that brings that. I mean, I agree that we have failed. I am talking about the world. We have failed in terms of what is going on in Gaza. I mean, the world has failed the world, and the world has failed its people with Gaza. I think it's the largest example since early 20th century where the world has failed the world and has failed humanity, Gaza. But outside of that, aren't we moving closer as a CARICOM, as a one nation CARICOM? The EU have the Schengen visa in which you travel. Shouldn't it be like that?
Well, I don't have an argument with that. Let me put it this way. When there are elections in African countries, whether it's in Ghana or Nigeria, you get members of the African Union body and the SADC and other groups and so going as observers.
CARICOM too.
Right, and CARICOM.
Guyanese.
Now, I am saying that, especially when you look at what's happening in Gaza, there is a tendency in this country, I'm saying that the Western, I don't mind, of course, CARICOM coming in. I think CARICOM and some other regional bodies and so. But when you look at the role that is played by the United States and Britain and Canada, I have a serious issue with that. I have a serious issue. For example, you have the International Republican Institute, which is aligned to the National Endowment for Democracy, the NED. Some scholars refer to it as the National Endowment for the Destruction of Democracy. But they promote color revolutions and regime change and all that. The IRI was involved in this country in the 2015 elections, in this vote like a boss campaign. And the then U.S. charge in the face of this guy, Brian Hunt, was part of that. And those people come into your country under this thing about voter education and capacity building and all of this postmodern nonsense and talk, right? But the idea is to remove governments that are not compliant. That's what they do. That's what they do. And they're interfering in the affairs of this country. They're meddling in our affairs. I believe that independence, if we are independent and sovereign, good. I think that as a self-determining nation, both what the decisions that are made at the domestic level and at the level of our foreign policy outside must reflect the interests of this country and not people telling us what to do. Let me give you an example of something. Imagine, I was listening to President Museveni, and I'm not a fan of him. Of Uganda. And he was speaking to a number of African leaders gathered. And he said that when the so-called revolution started in Libya, he said they put together, he said he could not make it to Libya. So one of his vice presidents went, and they had five presidents and a vice president going to Libya to see if they could get this thing, what was taking place there, settled, right? Arrive at some sort of arrangement or compromise. He said, and they were flying from there to Nouakchott in Mauritania. And when they arrived in Mauritania, to get the flight, 6 presidents, 5 presidents and a vice president, to get the flight to Libya, NATO, tell them, no, you can't go, turn back. You can't go into Libya, turn back. And he said, this is African leaders going to an African country and flying over African territory, and NATO tell us you can't go. And these are 6 African countries with very powerful armies. Good? And NATO could tell them, you can't go. You could imagine what the Americans and them tell this country. Do you know what they tell this country? The Americans are bullies. And I am waiting. Look, we're talking about independence. Recently, you had a seminar at UG. It was a workshop on World Freedom Day, the freedom of the press. And I think it was held at UG. And you had the representative of the US Embassy up there talking about freedom of the press and all of that. And this thing was sponsored by UG. And more than 147 journalists have been killed in Gaza. And we heard nothing from the Guyana Press Association with that. Nobody issued a statement because nobody wants to offend the Americans because they don't want the visa to be revoked. Good. And people, there's a sort of a selective morality and people take opportunistic positions. There's no consistency. They do because certain people can say things and get away with it. And they go along with that. They don't stand up to anything. They would not. People know what Exxon is doing. People know what Exxon is doing. And Exxon is not just an ordinary. Exxon is trampling on the sovereignty and independence of this country and the independence.
Well, before Charlene come in, shouldn't we look at things contextually? We've come, Charlene said in her opening speech, looking back at 58 years, and what she see, she doesn't like. But shouldn't we not face reality? We don't have Exxon. We don't have foreign investment. What becomes of the third world? I mean, no one can deny that Cuba has been the train, the moving train for workers' rights and bringing social and economic justice to the Cuban people. And they have opened up tremendously to European investors. Shouldn't it be that foreign investors should be regulated and make sure that they do not impinge on, the sovereignty of the country? But should we have a blanket policy of foreign investors coming in here and look what they're doing, Charlie?
I'm a little bit confused as to the question. It seems as though you're trying to get us to possibly see that the movement of the times, that there's something legitimate about the movement of the times and the climate of investment and all of that. But if our voice is shriveled as a small nation, if our voice, if our decision making is shriveled because we don't match the economies of the powerful nations, then it is another form of colonialism. Because independence should have meant a shift, not only in how we see the world, but in how the world sees us. And that shift, you have enlightened people all over the world, in every single country, even in Israel, as we speak, right? The pariah state of the world. It never ever will be anything else but a pariah state, or worse. But we don't have a voice that is as loud as the powerful nations, so that what is the meaning of the word independence when it talks about human value? I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear enough. That we've got a shift. There has to be a massive paradigm shift in how we value what it is we have to bring to the world. And right now, the value of the world...
Wait. Keep on, Charlie. You finished?
No, I'm saying right now the value of the world is in how much power you have to destroy the environment. The people who have the power to destroy the environment are still the people who are the most powerful.
Charlie,
How could you be going in any direction of independence with a dialogue with that kind of discourse as dominant?
Charlene and Gerald, I am committed since I was 16 years old I went to work in the Michael Ford bookstore owned by the PPP, and I became enchanted with all these leftist, socialist, Marxist literature. I believe it's part of my my existence. But on the other hand, I've seen too much suffering in my own country. I taught at a university where you couldn't get printing paper, toilet paper. So there has to be a hard decision taken about reaching out to people who want to help Guyana. Here is my point, whoever wants to come in. I agree with all of that. But how is it that the Europeans and the imperialists want to dominate us? They move closer together. And we have to, well, the rest of the Caribbean will be near 58 years, 60 years of independence. We have a Privy Council in which English judge decide in our case. Mm-hmm. We have, we have a CSME.
Well, Jamaica still goes to the Privy Council.
That is the country that gave us Bob Marley, Usain Bolt.
These are the serious contradictions.
But my thing is, why our heads have been meeting consecutively, I think, for 38 years. And we haven't got free movement of people. We haven't got the CCJ. Mm-hmm. Isn't our own people in the third world? Isn't their own enemies?
No. Yes and no. But the no is louder because they don't want freedom. I am saying the measure of Caribbean progress is the measure of what happens to Haiti. Y'all might disagree with me, but if Haiti is the only country that ever stood up to imperialism in the way it did, declared an independent nation, and continues to be invaded by the U.S. Continually, I am saying there's a concerted move among the white nations of the world that black nations or non-white nations must never stand up.
But you had a black president for 2 consecutive years, and you have an East Indian African vice president. She's East Indian and African. But how do you account for that? Whoever want Barack Obama.
Barack Obama, the monster.
I heard Italian women in villages when this man became the president. I heard maybe they were semi-literate, they were farmers. I heard those people cry for joy. Mm-hmm. Were you talking about the Americans?
Right, but you know who saw clearly?
You use the word white.
Let me tell you, Obama was, you know who saw clearly, even before he became president, what he would become or what he was? A plant by the white supremacists to re-invade Africa. And we saw it in living color. Right.
What Ronald Reagan failed to achieve in Libya, what George Bush
said that
failed to achieve in Libya, Barack Obama with Hillary Clinton achieved in overthrowing one of the most prosperous countries in Africa. I lived there and I saw the prosperity.
The people of Guyana need to know that.
And I agree with the black militants like Malik Zulu Shabazz of the New Black Panther Party and many other activists and so, right? And the Garveyites and all that, many other. Barack Obama was just a black face of white supremacy. Kwame Ture said something that black faces in high places does not necessarily translate as black power. So what we got in the Caribbean here, right? In the Caribbean, we have black faces, black prime ministers. You've seen a black chief justice, a black police commissioner, a black head of the army. Good? But the entire arrangement is neo-colonial. Yeah. And as Nkrumah had that right when he said that the hideous gasp of imperialism is neocolonialism. Because it's easy, you're not seeing the white face in front of you. but they're pulling the strings.
That is why they
And this is what is happening right across. Look, I know, I can tell you. So 2 diplomats told me, 2 diplomats who are not Guyanese, diplomats from other countries.
In Guyana? Diplomats from other countries?
No, they're not based in Guyana. They're outside of Guyana. They're diplomats of 2 Caribbean countries. And they said to me that when Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister Ralph Gonzalez of St. Vincent the Grenadines, and Prime Minister Skerrit of Dominica, when they were organizing this meeting for President Ali and Maduro to sit down to draft the Argyle Agreement, do you know pressure was being mounted on them not to hold this meeting? They didn't want I'm telling you, the president of this Ali and Maduro to meet. Those people have an agenda. They want a war because President Ali did not, before I don't think the ink was dry. The ink on the Argyle Agreement had dried before he arrived, and you had a British warship heading down here. Now, what is it? What signal you're sending?
No, wait, I'm a bit confused. Who wants a war?
Well, powerful forces
want Venezuela to invade us?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that. I'll come to that.
Very convenient.
There were people who did not want
the Argyle Declaration.
That meeting.
That meeting that resulted in the Argyle.
That resulted in the Argyle Declaration. They did not want that meeting.
And they didn't want it for what reason?
Well, of course, we'll get to that now. We'll get to that. This is where I break ranks with those who are saying, no, I got some issues with President Maduro. I think the language he uses and the things he say, right, is just playing into the hands of the Americans. Now, I understand what is called, if you read, you don't have to be a Marxist, right? And people could toss out Marxism and say, but I'm not Marxist. But I can acknowledge truths that Marx observed. And Marxism is not some dogma. Marxism is a tool of analysis that you can use to make analysis, right? And what Marx wrote in the manifesto, knows along that version, is still, when you look at the concentration of capital and what's happening in the world, you will believe that the manifesto was written yesterday. Now, having said that, good, Maduro was under sanction for years. And the sanctions that they imposed on Maduro has damaged the Venezuelan economy tremendously. Under Chavez, Venezuela, I went to Venezuela. The first time I went to Venezuela, I saw the poverty when you're moving from the airport, going into the city, the huge shacks. Good. And when Chavez came in,
but we are getting to the point.
Yes, I'm getting. What I'm saying is that that economy was going good. What Exxon is doing in Guyana, they were doing in Venezuela, and they were kicked out. They were kicked out because they refused to pay their share. Now, Exxon is not an ordinary company. Exxon is an arm of U.S. imperialism, and you threaten Exxon, and Exxon, you will get pressure. And that is why I said before the PPP got into office that despite Vice President Jagdeo saying that they will renegotiate the contract, I said if they will not. And the reason for saying that is, I said the truth is both of them, both parties, and I put it in very rough and crude line, I said they're frightened white people. And they do. Good? But so, no, what I'm saying is, I get him back to this thing here. Because those
white people, you're inviting investors to come.
No, I don't have a problem with investors. Investors are welcome. They're socialist China. No, I have no problem with investors. But as Burnham said, and I'm not Burnham sycophant. I admire Burnham. I like a lot of things that he implemented, but there was mistakes and a lot of things went wrong. That happened because social transformation and social change is not something easy. It's not easy. And then you have people who were paying lip service, who were not up to it. Julius Nyerere once said, you can't build socialism without socialists. Good? And many of those people were just paying lip service. That's another thing. But I believe in investors, but the show, we must direct the show. We can't have you raping, carrying out everything. Good. And then look at what we're getting. Look at what we're getting. Exxon, do you know that Exxon was on the verge of collapse? And this is the cash cow. This is what saved Exxon.
But what do you want Guyanese to do? Should we speak?
No, we have to stand up. We have to manage our national patrimony better. We have to have courageous leadership.
But
and neither the government nor the opposition is up to it, Freddie. None of the two of them.
Post-colonial countries that have, like us, who have had so much years of tremendous hardship, we have to. I think it's brutal pragmatism that investors come in. They're not going to come in and give you what you want, but one must see the implications of that.
But get something good. But Freddie.
You sure you're not being anti-invest?
No, I'm not.
In the third world that needs investment.
Freddie, look at
Which
this.
third world country though? You cite Uganda. You say
No, I am not opposed to investment. How can I? But I am saying that we cannot allow the investors to comment and to plunder us on what they get, and what we get. We can't show anything fit other than the holes, the gaping holes we will leave in the ground.
Charlene, I want you to come in here. I want to make this point because the guest,
I'm not opposed to
the guest is allowed. The guest is allowed the latitude. Do you realize what China has done? The very thing you were talking about, China. We got a saying in Guyana, I don't think our foreign visitors would, haul in your belly. China haul in the belly a deluge of companies from Europe, most Americans went in China, and 30, 40 years the manufacturing, this one I still use, Kobe, and China allowed them. And then China took that technology and beating the United States with it. Should we not say, all right, we ain't getting sufficient. But when they come in, it's going to help our economy, and then we could stand our own 2 feet in another 10 years. Isn't that pragmatism, Charlene? Let me hear what Charlene has to say.
Well, I like Gerald. I'm not against the investment, but to me, the mark of independence is how you can have conversations among the people and the people with the leaders that help them to understand that is the direction you're hoping to go in. That these roads we're building, you see these roads, people, it's so you could bring your things to market. It's so the internal trade could happen better, the external to internal, but that conversation isn't happening. And then you have this stupidness.
You bring in your coconut oil to market. I know it's manufactured coconut oil.
I should have bring it to show the people.
You should have brought oh my God, Charlene. You had your bottle coconut.
Where is that conversation?
Coconut oil. You should have
Where is that conversation with the teachers? Let's say, here now, you wait a little bit now. We got these plans. That you ain't getting the conversation. You're getting this big bully thing. Look how, I talk about the teacher strike because I talked about it before. Look how far the union was able to come down and compromise. So give it the 20%. Forget all the back years we're asking for. Let me deal with this year. Give it 20% across the board. And they say no. So all you nice language about investment.
But you're making the union angelic. People got look, this country is divided politically. You got unions with opposition leaders. They must make a claim.
Which country in the world ain't got a every time a strike happens, the opposition is take advantage. Which country don't happen, Freddie?
But but that doesn't mean the union that doesn't mean the union don't have an agenda. I believe people look. I believe when this program is finished, I want it to be said. I believe that there should be increase for people who work in the public sector. They work very hard. They get up in the morning. They're in GRA. They're in the police station, and I think they need. But I am not in charge. I'm not familiar with the people who handle the economy, and if they feel that there's some more time, more money will come in 2027,
That is the conversation that is missing. That's the missing conversation that legitimizes this climate of investment that you are talking about. That's a missing conversation. Where is the dialogue? Lead it to people in communities. You like the term assemblies of the people. Where is that? There's no independence here.
You see, independence, I want to get back to that thing Freddie raised about China later. It's very important. Now, independence is not just a country freeing itself from a former colonial power. Independence is also by the people, right? That each person is sovereign in the nation. Yes. And people must have a say in their affairs that impact their life. And these institutions are made by human beings, and these institutions are products of a particular historical period in the developmental evolution of human society. All over the world, look, there's 2 excellent books out, Freddie.
You may drink Charlene water.
No, my water is here. The end of, I was just knocking them together. The end of representative politics and the abolition of politicians. Right? Why? Because the method, it does another thing, the method is professional politician. But having said that, this is what we want to talk about, right? About this thing about independence. I'll get back to that. I lost track of that. But you were saying we'll get back. No. You were saying
we're too far.
You were talking about China.
We're too far in age. I will forget.
You were talking about China. You know, Freddie, when China, and you're right, when China under when Mao Zedong died, and you had what was called the Gang of Four, his wife and others, and so tried to stage a coup and thing and all that. And then Deng Xiaoping, who carried out the reforms, came in and took over. And that split up the...
But before Deng Xiaoping right to the top, they had put him in a reform school.
With Dunscap and all of that. Yeah, that was the Cultural Revolution, the Red Guards and so on. Now, the Cultural Revolution had some positive, but it did a lot of things, right? Because it did a lot of things that were wrong, and a lot of people became victims of that. It went off the train. But in those days, we saw, as a young man, and so, you're following things, we felt that Deng Xiaoping and them were like sellouts. China gone to the capitalist part and all of that. But then later on, when we revisited it, it wasn't that Deng Xiaoping and them sold out. And the Chinese got the thing now today where they are. The Chinese are speaking about socialism with Chinese characteristics. So what the Chinese did, of course, as Freddie pointed out, they allow investment to come in and all of that. Good. But you hear people say now that's been the big debate, because I'm part of an international thing with different parties and organizations called Friends of Socialist China. It's got forums and discussion, and there's a book, excellent book, The East is Still Red. The Chinese economy is planned. Good. There's central planning. Land cannot be bought. It's not like in a capitalist country where land as a means of production can be sold and bought. China, they can't sell that. The land is state land. Good. There's 600 billionaires in China. Good. But they cannot shape
600 or 6,000?
No, 600 billionaires. 600.
Because United States would have more than that.
600.
No, I don't think United States got 600 billionaires.
No, the Chinese got, well, you look at the Chinese population, yes.
Yeah.
But what is happening there, right? Look at China. China did something that no country has been able to do, which is China moved, even Imran Khan went to China, he said, we are here to learn. We want to know what y'all are doing. China moved more than 40 million people
out of poverty.
Yes. No capitalist country has done that. No capitalist country has done that.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal achievement.
Now, yes, there's capitalists, but the economy is not capitalist. They don't drive it, because the law, if you read you go back to Marx in Capital, the law of value, because Marx spoke about value, two sets.
Surplus value.
Yeah, and he spoke about exchange value and use value and exchange value, right? But the law of value and production is restricted.
Charlie, you know, you got any idea?
So
you study Marxism, Charlie,
look,
you know what he's talking about?
2015,
I know.
Superficial.
I know you like this.
Very superficial.
You are also a socialist too, right, Charlie?
Oh, to the bone.
Right. Well, I know you're a socialist,
Yes.
so
Freddie,
in
2012, Lee Wan, a Chinese millionaire, a Chinese billionaire, was executed in China because he took so much money and was doing it the level of corruption that he was executed. You ever heard about a billionaire being executed in America? No. Because what he was doing would disrupt that economy. But the Chinese learned something that the Soviets failed to learn, and I think the Cubans are coming around to that.
Let me hear what the Cubans are coming around there, because they've been successive failures.
No,
but that's what we refuse to acknowledge. I mean,
no, but what
are the Cubans coming around to?
But let me say this: there's a lot of you been to Cuba?
I've never been to Cuba.
Well, you should go.
I'm sorry,
we know
but
Cuba's
I would
under. No. I'm saying this.
You've been to Cuba, Charlie?
No, but I would go to a Cuban doctor over any other doctor.
Here. Ideologically,
I'm sorry. Any doctor, dentist, everybody.
I'm not a communist.
The quality of the Cuban education system.
Freddie,
you would go to a Cuban doctor over a Guyanese doctor?
Freddie,
yes.
Freddie.
I'm not saying they're not.
Freddie,
I'm not saying they're not good doctors of all kinds. But
do you know two things that happened that our people are not aware of? Do you know the Cubans came up with a drug that they have for the past, I think, 12 years now?
But they're good in medicine. But they're not good in agriculture.
There's a man that goes to the park and exercise.
This national park?
Yes. And a man turned to me, he said, you know, that man there you see running, they wanted to amputate both legs. Wow. And he went to Cuba. Now look, he's running up and down. The Cubans have a drug that they inject the foot and it reverses the process. So there's no need for amputation anymore. Gonzales of St. Vincent,
Ralph Gonzales,
ordered $350,000 worth of the drug at the time on the bank. And the money had to go through a corresponding bank in the States. And the United States held on to the people's money.
But you know,
they had to fight 9 months to get their money. In the meantime, people being happy. This is what we're talking about.
But before the hour is over, I think we need to talk about how white supremacy continues to invade our psyches and prevents us from becoming independent. Because when I came here, you invited me to a talk on independence. And Freddie, this whole idea about race, one of the things a young Jamaican lawyer shared with me, and I totally can relate. She said, a black woman, she said, we were raised to think that black people could take more pain. In other words, in a colonial society, the non-blacks are raised to think that black people, they forbear burden, take pain more than anybody else. The legacy of slavery and white supremacy is still with us. Freddie, I haven't changed. And I feel it and I know it because I grew up in a family, Chinese and black predominantly. And I understand. I wouldn't call us racist, but I call us colonized, right? And we have a lot of, I would call, neurotic, frenetic tensions in the country across the ethnic divide. That is one of the greatest stumbling blocks to independence, right? And people want us to wipe out the discourse on ethnicity and race rather than to look it in the eye and call it for what it is. I'm going to bring up the case of Tacoma Ogunse's charge of treason. In his own way, But that
hold on. That matter is subjudicated.
Yeah, you can't discuss.
So we can't discuss it.
No, you can't discuss it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right.
No, but I just want to say something, right? We talked
but go on.
Go on. Sorry.
No. I want us.
We can't discuss.
I shouldn't call people's name on the thing either. Right, but I have another very close friend, very activist, who says she don't want to hear about ethnicity anymore. I said I love ethnicity. I love it, But what it is, white supremacy has built barriers between our ethnicities instead of making our ethnicities part of a variety that makes us rich. It is that variety of ethnicity that makes us rich as a nation. But we're using it as divisions. Right? We're using it as divisions, and the greatest stumbling block is this Westminster political.
Well, I have always taken that line.
But Charlene, so give me a couple of minutes of this fatalism. So aren't we going to get out of it? Charlene is...
No, we're going to get out of it.
60 years of independence, Charlene.
What? What do you want us to get out of?
This mesmerizing domination of the psyche of post-colonial people by white supremacy, as you put it.
No, we have to acknowledge that it is there.
But we haven't come no way.
But the voices in the society are a small clique of Afro-Saxons and Indo-Saxons. And hopefully the indigenous people are not going to follow suit and create an indigenous elite and give the people no voice. Robbing the voice.
Charlene, you finished?
For now.
The Afro, so you don't want to, this Afro-Saxon and Indo-Saxon, you are saying they're part of the conspiratorial bandwagon to keep
they're part
post-colonial Guyana.
They're part of the damage that needs repair.
After 58 years of independence, Charlene, you don't see...
58 years old is a flash in the eye.
You don't see any reclamation of our Guyanese consciousness.
Hopefully conversations like these is part of the reclamation, where people come out and you bring out, I'm a Afro-Saxon myself, and so is he. He likes to play his...
I'm glad you don't call a papa like me.
Wait a minute.
No, Indo-Saxon.
Gerald, I don't mean it in the way I mean it. I mean it the way we were educated and enculturated. We had to commit class suicide to be where we are.
So Gerald is Afro-Saxon is mulatto Creole middle class.
No.
I've known Gerald Perreira to be a socialist and a Pan Africanist since we were teenagers.
Charlene, you know what's an Afro-Saxon? An Afro-Saxon? If you want to use, I don't want to use that word.
Charlene knows what it is, but she's misapplying it to you. He's not Afro. I've known him too long. He's an Afro-Saxon.
But I mean,
it's the Afro-Saxon. Let me tell you something. I have said it before. I've said it a million times before.
No, tell us if you're serious. You classify him as Afro-Saxon?
Gerald has obviously committed class suicide. And I hope that I have too.
But he grew up, I know him for so long, he grew up in Durban Street, working with us. And he was never, his father was Portuguese. But the two brothers that I know were never really up there. Gerald was never, as I said before, we teenagers together, a couple years difference between us. He's always
my father's Portuguese and black.
He was always, we were a band of young people together.
That's right.
But Charlene,
what are we talking
Charlene,
about?
You said, he committed class suicide because he defected from his mulatto mill. But you said you were Afro-Saxon.
The class. The class. You
Freddie.
come into a privileged class that's supposed to talk English, that's supposed to eat a knife and fork, supposed to go to Bishop's Queen's College or whatever, and supposed to come out and live a certain way. White picket fence, 2.5 children, etc., try to drive car.
2.5 children, that's like 33, not the
greatest
distance from the working class, the better. Right?
My father socialized all his friends. My father socialized with the waterfront workers, and then when he go stand up in his suit.
Okay, you don't have to defend yourself.
No. I'm just saying that was his. We saw it. He was with the work. That was his lifestyle. But getting back to, you can recall when they had the Black Power uprising in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Good, with all those groups and then Jack and the Black Power. Was it against who it was? It was against Eric Williams' neo-colonial regime. Because here was a country, this was a man who wrote the book, Capitalism and
Capitalism to Slavery.
Right? And showing that slavery.
You could say that he didn't ban his own book.
No, that's a myth.
No.
That was a thing.
He ban his own book.
Sorry.
But no, was from Columbus to Castro. From Columbus to Castro and Capitalism and Slavery. And like Walter Rodney,
Capitalism and Slavery in Columbus.
In Capitalism and Slavery, he showed that it was the trade in captured Africans that laid the material basis for capitalist development in Europe and so, right? Because people speak about racial capitalism. The point is, that was an uprising. Here was Trinidad was meant to be independent. But the Black Power uprising was against a black government that was facilitating white monopoly capital and white neo-colonial rule in the country.
The operator signal we got to go. Any interview that Gerald is in, he dominates it. So Charlene, what you have to say? You don't see Charlene, you don't see we getting moving relentlessly out of poverty, that in another 10 years, 15 years, Guyana will be up there?
Oh, no, I'm not a seafarer woman. I would like to...
You're not a clairvoyant?
No.
I don't see it, Freddie.
Right.
I think oil and gas is... oil and gas...
You're gonna get dominated.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. No,
oil and gas don't make you rich.
We got the...
It's a system you have that will, at the end of the day, determine.
We got this... I don't know if you know, but this is a little... entrepreneur coming up here. She manufactures coconut oil.
No, I don't manufacture it. I help the manufacturers to market it.
She's a middle person.
Oh, you're a middle person.
Yes.
But before we go, I know you've always...
I don't make any money. I don't make any money out of it. I just pass it through. Yeah.
You're a very ethical middle person.
Afro-Saxon.
Some people think I'm crazy to be doing that.
She says she's Afro-Saxon, so she... But I don't think she realized that she is admitting she's part of this class that keeps the post-colonial psyche down. Because she's saying it's the Afro-Saxon and the Afro-Indians that have preserved this... the Indo-Saxon that have preserved this... colonial penetration, and then she says she's Afro-Saxon. Just before we go, how do you explain that contradiction?
You playing your hair. I said I committed class suicide and suffered for it.
Brilliant.
And suffer for it. There's some gatherings my family don't invite me to.
Because you're too radical, you're too leftist.
I got that leaked one day. Somebody leaked it out. They were planning something and didn't invite me. Well, they were embarrassed about what the things I might bring up.
All right, well, I know when you're in conversation, you don't hold back. I'm so glad this program ended tonight, and I wouldn't get a libel, because, you know, as they say in common parlance, you're mounting a padlock. Charlene Wilkinson, I've known you, and it's quite that, and my friend from teenage days.
All right.
You were looking at UG lecturer Charlene Wilkinson, and well-known African rights activist, and also Guyana's perhaps longest serving Pan Africanist. I think he has that distinction from all that I've known who were Pan Africanists in Guyana. Gerald Perreira. Gerald, this is his fourth appearance on this program, and I know it wouldn't be the last. And this is Charlene's first appearance. And I have to thank her for waiting for 4 hours, because she said the show must go on, and back out, and then she came back for 8:30. We will see you on Friday, and then we will see you on Monday. The show must go on. Thanks very much to the patience of Gerald Perreira and Charlene Wilkinson, that after 5 hours waiting because of blackout, then went home and came back for this program. I respect that commitment. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.